Hey guys, welcome to the Beta Waves channel. My name is Kabir. This is the very first chapter of analysis of RX. Before we dig into the implementation of RX, it is really important to understand the concept behind. Like, what is RX and where does it belong to? For example, is it a concept or a programming language or a library or just another fancy word to use in programming? So let's just start from the very beginning, which in my opinion it would be beneficial to understand the bigger picture of RX world. So the very first question arises here is, what is programming paradigm? A programming paradigm is a name given to the approach or a way that we apply to solve any particular problem. So let's just simply put, basically it is, how do you approach to solve any particular problem? As there could be multiple approaches or ways to solve one problem, in the same way there are multiple programming paradigms. Let's just understand with one problem statement here. For example, we want to calculate the sum of every number within the list, and we want to perform this operation at multiple locations within our app. So let's look at the first example here. As you can see, we have different functions in different classes. Function in class A, class B, class D, or class C. Three functions we have right now in three different classes, and we are iterating over the list then and there and calculating the sum and using the sum then and there. This is the very first approach. And in the second approach, as you can see, we have created one function inside the util or helper class, and we are invoking that function wherever we want to calculate the sum of every number within the list, and we are referencing that function from that this classes. And this is the second approach. As you can see, we have used two different approaches to solve our problem statement, which are resulting in the same output, and I'm not considering the memory and this time complexity here. Right now we are just focusing on the output thing, and we want to understand the different approaches. So on higher level, these programming paradigms or ways or approaches are divided into two categories. The first one is imperative and the second one is declarative programming paradigm. Don't worry, in the next just 2 minutes you will be able to differentiate between these two. Just a high level difference, because it's good to know your craft. So we will understand these two different paradigms through real world analogy first, before moving to the definition from the Wikipedia page, and subsequently we will move to the coding part. There we will see the actual implementation of these two different approaches. So let's start with the real world analogy. Suppose a girl named Sheila and a boy named Rangila left the office at the same time, and they are going in the different direction from the office. So let me tell you something about Rangila first. He's a very talkative person and he likes talking to strangers. And Sushila on the other end, she's very intellectual person and does not speak a lot. So they are booking a cab from some local cab service. Let's assume it's happening before the Uber era. Since they have booked the cab already, now Rangila receives a call from his driver asking for a direction to his location. As we are in pre-Uber world, then Rangila started guiding him turn by turn to reach his location. In the same way, Sushila receives a call, but now she is very smart. She tells the cab driver the address of the building, and driver said, okay, I will be there in 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. As you might have noticed, they are both in similar situation but have chosen the different approaches. If we dig little deeper, they both want the cab to be there in front of them, but Rangila was controlling the execution of the desired outcome. Here execution flow is how the driver will reach to the location, and desired outcome is cab to be there in front of them. And this girl Sushila, she didn't care much about the execution part, which is how the cab driver will reach there. She just mentioned the address of the building and was focusing on the desired outcome. That's it. She was not controlling the how part. So here girl took the declarative approach. She just mentioned the attribute of the desired outcome, which is the address of the building. she didn't care about the how part, and the boy took imperative approach. He was focusing on the execution part as well, along with the desired outcome. I hope you understood the difference, but if not, let's look at the other example. In this example, Rangila went to ABC coffee shop and he ordered one large coffee. Then guy at the counter of the shop took the order and started making coffee for him. And in some another world, Sushila was reading a book at home and she made the coffee for herself. In both the scenarios, desired outcome here is coffee for both of them. Now can you deduce who took which approach? Let's see. Here Rangila just declared his outcome, he didn't control the execution. But Sushila, as you all know, she's smart, she knows when to choose which approach. So here she chose imperative approach. As she knew this approach will give her more control over the execution to make the coffee of her taste. So Rangila chose the declarative approach this time and Sushila chose imperative approach. You might have noticed now in previous two examples that declarative approach focuses on what part, not on the how part, but on the other hand imperative focuses on both. The reason for telling you guys these real world example is that when you learn something in programming world or related to programming, then don't just think of it from programmer mindset. Think of it from layman perspective first and apply it anywhere, like while doing daily task at your home, or maybe while driving or going to the restaurant eating, and then you will be able to easily map to that to the programming world, as every concept in the programming world is driven from the real world around you. Now let's look at the definition from the internet. So here it is Wikipedia page of declarative programming paradigm. It says declarative programming is a programming paradigm, a style of building the structure and elements of computer programs that expresses the logic of computation without describing its control flow. Since you have already gone through the real world examples, so you must be able to decode this definition. As it says, it just expresses the logic of computation without describing its control flow. So in the very first example, our logic of computation was the address mentioned by the girl, because in that example Sushila took the declarative approach and she mentioned the address to the driver and she didn't mention the control flow, unlike Rangila, as he was controlling the execution flow and guiding the driver to reach to his location turn by turn. Now let's look at the Wikipedia page of imperative programming paradigm. It says imperative programming is a programming paradigm that uses statements that change a program's state step by step. Simply means we are telling the hardware or the system step by step to accomplish the desired outcome. Like in second step, Sushila was making coffee for herself. She took the imperative approach. She stood in front of the coffee machine and made coffee for herself. So now let's look at the coding example to understand these approaches. So I am going to do that in Kotlin, and of course you can do that in any language of your choice. So with this program, what we are trying to do is we are multiplying each number within the list to some integer, and we are going to perform this task in two approaches, in two ways. One is the imperative and another one is declarative, and this one is the main entry of this Kotlin class. So as you can see, in imperative we are just iterating over the existing list that we have defined here, and we are creating one output which is an empty one, and in the output we are adding each number by multiplying each number with the argument supplied and returning the output here. Here we are controlling the how part as well, as we have discussed earlier, but in terms of declarative part, we are just using this map function, which is the higher order function in Kotlin, as Kotlin supports declarative in the form of functional programming that we will discuss in the second part. But as you can see here, we have just mentioned the computation logic or the attribute of the desired result. We are not focusing on the how part. So this is the imperative example and this is the declarative example to solve the same problem statement. And as we are going to execute this, you will see it's executing. For the GitHub link, you can check the description of the video, and as you can see the output here for the imperative and for the declarative, we are getting the same output with two different approaches. Therefore, in some languages like Java or Kotlin, we can either follow imperative or declarative approach, that's up to us. But if you look at the example here in HTML, here we are just telling the system to display the image for us. So HTML is a declarative example because it doesn't let us control the flow of the program. Here is the conclusion. As you can see the high level difference between these two. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.